Hey everyone, I'm AdamHarry with
JayArr.
We're from BoLS, and we're back with another Retro Corner review of the Player's Handbook.
Right, and
This is the AD&D Player's Handbook.
It is much loved, as you guys can see. This copy has been through some action.
It's been to the dungeons.
Had some glorious service in
fought the dragons.
Cause of adventure. And today, when we go through this, because I'm sure you could flip through the book, but today when we go through this book, what I want to take a look at and what I want to show off is sort of what the expectations of D&D back in first edition were, and sort of how that ties into 5th edition where we stand today.
Ooh, this is gonna be fun.
I think it's gonna be fun.
I just like this book from a historical perspective of like a time capsule, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It presents a snapshot of the world in 1979.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's when this one is from. Although
June 78 was when the foreword was written.
But I think ours is a 79 copy. So
because it was a second. Anyway, holy crap! Yeah, let's go through it. This is the book.
Everything you need to play the game, right, is in here, as well as a whole bunch of advanced rules, because this was at the time they had the box set of basic stuff.
Right.
This is like, all right.
Yeah, the red box. You buy that, you play around, you get a feel for it. You get the advanced book.
Yep.
Boom.
This is the real game. This is the true game begins, right?
The game itself, right there. The game.
Exactly. So
what
I want to point out is most of the book kind of wears its war game influence on its sleeve. So all your abilities kind of relate to your ability to fight in the world.
That goes back to the chainmail thing, right?
Yeah, that's where D&D came from, was war game miniatures, war game fantasy called chainmail. And it kind of carries through strength, intelligence, wisdom. All of it matters just for like, how do you fight in combat? How can it affect you? What's your chance of spell failure? What's your chance of spell success? What's your defense adjustment? What can you do?
Yeah.
And
I just want to point out too, the artwork in this book is really funny. A lot of the other books we've looked at for AD&D, they don't have a ton of artwork. It's very they're very Spartan. It's very dense and Spartan.
Very, very text heavy. But these guys have got some great artwork here.
They're silly. Intentionally, like this is clearly
that's a low dexterity character right there.
Exactly. And you can kind of see there's a little bit. It's a little cartoony in some places, but honestly, some of the art's pretty freaky too. At the same time, like they have a lot of different styles going on. I just want to call that out.
Absolutely. Okay, so talking about what the expectation was. The expectation was that you're a hero. You're an adventurer who goes out specifically to kill monsters and find treasure. You're meant to explore dungeons. You're meant to do, to loot everything and see what you can find. And a lot of that you can see in these rules. A lot of the game as we know it would come out of like modules and stuff later. But what I want to point out, and what I think is a really interesting suggestion of it, and I love the way it's kind of changed in 5th edition, is when you look at the sort of titles that go along with the level. As you level up, characters gain different, titles that go with them. So, and depending on what you are, you have different requirements as well. So, clerics, for instance, might start off their career as an acolyte and end up as a high priest.
Right. I think the paladin types would go for cavalier, like a horseman on up to.
It's true. Now druids are an interesting exception to the rule, because druids they get special powers, but they also have certain restrictions that they'd have to go through.
Yeah.
Druids have to best or be appointed by the great druid, and that's a character that's in the world, and that's just part of it. You want to play a druid, you got to deal with the great druid, you got to join a grove, you got to join a circle.
One of the big things too about AD&D, I know for class specific stuff too, you ideally when you rolled your character, you actually rolled your character. There wasn't really a point buy system,
right? And
you had to roll your stats up, and based on those stats, determine what kind of character you could be, even down to your racial stats.
Yeah, you had minimums and maximums that you would adhere to. Like if you were playing, an elf, you could only get your strength up so high. You know? Even if you rolled an 18, which was the best you could do, or 18 and 00 for your percentile strength, but we're not getting into that right now. What I do want to point out is, and where I think the game really shows off its like core ideas, are in like the assassin class. So this is a thief sort of alternate. And one of the things that they sort of expect you to do is to be an assassin. And you are expected to charge people for assassinations. They have a table that's like your minimum fee. That's something that you could point to as a player and be like, hey, DM, if I'm killing this person, I'm making this much money. You know?
I have a particular set of skills, and I'm being paid for them. So
sure, your adventure might be venturing into the fortress and killing them and taking them out. But at the end of the day, you're there to like kill the Duke or whatever. Now, why I'm pointing out all of this stuff is because a lot of the rules sort of enforce what the story of D&D is, right? If you're an assassin, you're going to go and assassinate people, and the mechanics and the flavor of the game both work to present that picture, which is what 5th edition is doing as well. I guess all of the editions have done that, but like 1st and 2nd edition had a handle on it, and 5th edition feels like a refinement of that process.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
a lot of the mechanics of a character inform your story, right? Like if in 5th edition you're playing a sorcerer with you pick a bloodline for your source of magic, and that really influences you. You're playing a warlock, you pick a being that you have a pact with, and that kind of is baked in 1st edition stuff, and they kind of went back to that. Which is really cool. There's a lot of expectation, right, from a wargame perspective, that you would have henchmen and hirelings and people to help with your dungeon crawl. You know, you have people to help you carry out loot because the encumbrance system is very granular.
And very unforgiving.
Very unforgiving, and gold has weight.
Yeah, which it should.
It weighs a lot, absolutely. And as a dungeon master here, you're expected to know, like, all right, well, I mean, one of the biggest jerk moves you could pull is giving them, like, a ton of wealth, but all in copper. How are you going to get it out of there?
Yeah. You've got 1 million gold coins worth of copper.
Exactly.
Have fun trying to spend it and or carry it out of here.
And then you can also kind of see, in sort of the way the game is set up, you can also kind of see the stuff that they're where they're changing, where they're becoming a little bit more narrative focused as well. Like if you look at the spells, sure, a lot of them are kind of designed to give you an edge up in combat, but a lot of them also, like commune with nature, kind of reflect your place in the world. Yeah. So I think AD&D is really one of the reasons it's so enduring is because it's where like it went hard into the role-playing game idea, you know, and it gave people a lot more narrative hooks to start telling their own stories. You can even see it in the artwork that's reflected here. You know, it's not just, hey, we're going to a dungeon for no reason, or we're going to a dungeon just to take loot. Although that's like
one of the
main reason.
That's what
I mean. They even suggest getting experience points for finding gold. You know.
Yeah. Very granular system. I know that ADD, as I've actually played this version of the game, it is super granular. There's charts and rules for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Because the game was again a snapshot of the time, a snapshot of the era. It was supposed to be.
It was supposed to be this like incredibly tactical, complex thing, and they had rules.
They wanted to simulate adventuring in a dungeon.
Absolutely.
They made rules up to simulate that. It was a role-playing game, but they wanted you to simulate that as much as possible. So, but again, you can see that in all the different things like obedience, morale, mapping. It's just like all of those rules that they created. They brought some of them back. They brought a lot of them back. Absolutely. But they've streamlined it a lot compared. We've had 3 years now.
In that streamlining, they found more interesting places to play the game. So I want to take a look real quick at what a successful adventure looks like, according to the AD&D Player's Handbook. Yeah. So it starts off with a little preamble that says, few players are so skillful at fantasy role-playing games as to not benefit from advice. Many readers will be new to this. So again, back in the day. But the most common form of AD&D play is an underground adventure, whether it's in a dungeon, cave complex, temple maze, labyrinth, or whatever. The main thrust of this part is aimed at improving that kind of play in those sorts of settings. Outdoor and city adventure might be touched on later, and interestingly enough, they want you to spend your precious adventuring minutes adventuring rather than talking to shopkeepers and preparing to go.
Shopping adventure.
Exactly. Now that's a way different perspective, you know. 5th edition, you might spend a whole session and not roll any dice, and that's some of the most memorable stuff you can do.
Absolutely.
And I think it's both of these games kind of present you a game where you can do that, you know, and I love I like thinking about this. The successful adventures thing gives some play advice, like if you're going down a corridor, you know, you should have formations. This is the 10-foot corridor. This is the 20-foot corridor. This is our door opening formation, you know, our thief at the front, our meat shields behind it, but off to the side, so not to get hit by any traps on the door.
Like the lightning bolt trap that's going to trigger when he fails it and shoots a lightning bolt down the hallway.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's exactly like what they're telling you to do. They also say avoid unnecessary encounters, so you don't need to clear a dungeon. You can just sort of go for what you're wanting and ignore wandering monsters or random things that you run into. Run away from them. Spike the doors. Keep them from getting to you. Your objective is the treasure. 5th edition, that kind of logic still applies, right? Because fights take a while, and they kind of get in the way of your objectives sometimes. So it's just a really interesting look at where the game was and where it is and how similar those two are. And then, of course, the AD&D book also has the psionics, because you can tell I want a chance of being a psionic warrior. A lot of original AD&D stuff is very roguelike as far as video games go. There's a random chance you might have weird stuff, and if you do, you get to do all the cool stuff. You get to be a bard, right? If you meet these random requirements, if you roll really well on your strength, you could be a paladin. You know, but you have to jump that bar. Anyway, that's just a look at.
And then we have a look at the planes and stuff like that.
Right. But so that's just a look at how AD&D kind of shaped D&D at the time and how it's way different now. So.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's definitely the same DNA.
Yeah, and by going back to what made the first one work, but looking at what makes that work in our day and age, that's why 5th edition feels so rich and so full.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, JayArr, thanks for that pretty awesome breakdown of the PHP from AD&D.
And thanks for coming back in time with me.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm AdamHarry.
I'm JayArr.
We're both from BoLS Souls.
Thanks for watching.